All right, everybody, look at that. I was able to get the meeting started at 7 o'clock so I wouldn't get nasty gram texts from some of my good friends. So, welcome everybody. Let's make sure I got all my little boxes checked here. I think I do. Let's do not that. Let's do this right here. There we go. All right. So welcome to the Hump Day Hangar Presentation sponsored by supercub.org and the Not So Straight and Level podcast. And I just want to see if everybody watched the SpaceX launch today. No, we didn't. It's amazing that such an amazing piece of equipment is scared of a little lightning, but I don't understand all that. So I want to thank all of our supporting members and advertisers for making these Hump Day presentations possible. Of course, a huge thanks to the presenters, and last but certainly not least, all of you in the audience today. You may not know it, but here at supercub.org, we have put out a calendar for over 17 years featuring great shots sent in by folks from all over the world. The 2021 calendar submissions are now open. You can find the link to submit a picture to that on the supercub.org homepage. So it's something like 2021 calendar submissions, so watch for that. So also, if you'll please share these presentations with your friends. These presenters go to a whole lot of work and they deserve a wider audience. Having said that, all our combined presentations so far have had over 12,000 views, which I think is pretty fantastic. Next week, Ted Waltman, who's the creator of the fly2ak.com website, is going to give a program on routes to Alaska. Ted has flown to Alaska a number of times, and he's got lots of photos and helpful tips to talk to us about next week. That's going to be a good one, so be sure to come back and check that out. Tonight's presenter, Paul Jackson, has a diverse aviation background. He's a 26-year employee and captain with Southwest Airlines. To date, he's accumulated over 22,000 hours of flight time. He has a passion for aviation that extends beyond his career. He's flown everything from pre-World War II aircraft to modern jets. He operates a seaplane base in McGregor, Minnesota, and keeps a full-time residence with his wife, Christy, in the Minneapolis area. And tonight, we're going to hear about another part of his life. Welcome, Paul Jackson.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Tonight, I thought it'd be interesting. I talked to Steve about this, and I'll take you through the journey of Flightline TV. I actually wore my Flightline shirt. I think that's kind of cool. I got my Super Cup hat on, so we're all set. The Flightline was a kind of a dream of mine, and it started very quietly and very small, and pretty much between two friends. And over 3 years, it grew, and that's what I want to talk about tonight, into a international TV show. And then as we moved on into the internet world, we moved on to video on demand and different things like that, and we evolved. It was quite a journey. It was about 3.5, 4-year-long journey, but I'll go ahead and start a presentation. Now, I'm going to ask Steve if things get glitchy here. I've got a lot of video. I'm going to play some video. We've worked on it, but bear with me here as I click through my screens, and I'll share some things. All right. So Flightline Television started hang on one second. Let me start the presentation. There you go. Nothing moves very quickly in aviation, as you know. Try that. And we're up, Steve. There we go. Now we're up. Okay. It all started in 1952. I was lucky enough to grow in the Minneapolis area, and there was a man who came on every morning at 11:45 on Sunday mornings. You'd hustle home from church, and Sherm Bowen would be on, and he had a show called The World of Aviation. And in 1952, obviously, television was pretty new. But the amazing thing about his television show was he ran for 28 years on local television. That is the longest running local television show in U.S. history. And Sherm also put out a magazine called the Minnesota Flyer, and he basically ran around with an 8mm camera and then would upload it and sit and give a presentation on it. I grew up with that. That's what really kind of, I think, first lit my fire for aviation.
Hey, Paul.
Yep.
Can you do the mode where your slides appear full screen to you? Because we're seeing your notes in your next.
Oh, you see my notes in my next. Hang on one second. I don't know how to do that.
I think that's.
Hang on one second. I apologize.
That's all good. I think it's that one right there you were just on, but.
This one?
Yes, try that.
Playback or unblock slideshow, toggle subtitles, see all slides.
Try the little double clicker thing there. I know some. Oh, try that. Nope, that's not it. Go down to
Got it now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I just swapped it. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a little different than the presentation we used. Sorry about that technical glitch. So Mark and I got together in kindergarten. We met, we were about 5 years old, and we lived in the same neighborhood. And Mark was, did you ever get in trouble? Well, I got in trouble, and pretty much every time I got in trouble, I was with Mark. And every time Mark got in trouble, he was with me. So we were kind of the wild children of the neighborhood. I went off to school, learned to fly. Mark went off and got into TV production. In I'm going to say the early 2000s, Mark was doing a TV show, and it was kind of a variety show, and he did a feature on me flying a Citation jet that I own part of. And he came out, did a piece on it. He came back to me afterwards and he said, man, there's something about that. I've never received so many phone calls. I've never received so much email and so much feedback on it. He said, there's something there. And we got talking about Sherm Bowen and about the past and everything. And through some connections, we went ahead and set up a meeting with Channel 45, which was Hubbard Broadcasting. And I'll talk a little bit about the Hubbard family. The Hubbards are an aviation family. They own a Caravan and Amphibs. They've got they had an STC for a G2 with a Hush kit on it. They're airplane people. And I knew the Hubbards through airplanes. Mark knew them through TV production. And we set up a meeting with them. And I don't know if it came from the top, but somewhere it came. And they basically said to us, hey, that's a really good idea. You should do a 30-minute show on our station called Channel 45. And Channel 45 was a station in transition. It was kind of if you remember in the old UHF days, it was one of those high ones when you click the top knobs, it was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Then you had the bottom knob and it was all those little the big numbers. Well, that was what they had purchased. And they'd just gone from to a 720p format from analog in 2009. They were looking for some good programming. So they gave us a show, and they gave us a 30-minute show. And Mark looked at me and said, okay, we got to get some content. Let's go out and start shooting some stuff. And we've got 13 episodes to fill. So we took a 182 out. Mark had a camera, had a little cord on it. If you can imagine a cord we stuck out the door. I was trying to figure out, was it better to run it out the window or try to shut the door around it? We taped it to the strut of the 182 and we went out and we flew around. We came back, we had a little video and it was awful. And Mark said, we got to do better than this. And we actually did then go out and purchase a couple of the first versions of GoPros. And we did do some mounting with those in that timeline. The time frame for this was about 2009 when we started doing this. So with a 30-minute show, you basically have 22 minutes that you own. And in this case, they get their commercials, they fill in their commercials, and you get about 22 minutes. When we started shooting features and we started looking at what a feature was, it took about 8 minutes once we were done with them and edited down and what we did. So that gave us 16 minutes. In between, we do some stand-ups, which is Mark and I kind of standing up and talking a little bit. And then the hard part is you have to fill. And so we did a segment called Ask the Pilot, or we did something else with a little bit hokey, but it was always something to try and make it hit exactly 22 minutes on the screws. So when you have 22 minutes, what do you have to show the viewer? How do you captivate the viewer was kind of Mark's question to me. And the first thing we did is we looked at our television show and we went out and we said, who's done something like this? Well, Sherm Bowen was no longer around, being that he started TV in 1952. He was gone now. But there was somebody out there, and it was Guy Fiero from Food Network. He does a show called Diners, Drive-Ins, and Drive-Thrus. And interestingly enough, his first producer, who he had kind of a bad divorce from, but his first producer was from Minneapolis. So we were able to talk to him, and then we ended up talking to Guy a little bit through some people. And what he said is, make your show repeatable, make it interchangeable, and make your features or what you go out and do, the work that you do, the hard work that you do, timeless, and if you can, locationless. And that'll give you the ability to build up a library. And when the TV station calls you and says, we want a TV show, what Guy would do is he'd grab a lobster place in Maine, a taco place in Florida, and another one, and he'd put them together, and then he'd have a show. And then he'd do his driving his little Camaro thing down the road, and he'd do his thing. Well, we did the same thing with Aviation, but albeit that we just started in 2009. The challenge we had in 2009 was, being that they said ready, set, go, we pretty much shot every single show every single week, and then edited it, and then put it on the air, and then went out and shot another show and edited it and put it on the air. And you can imagine, if you look at a feature, and I'll show you some features in a few minutes, that got a little bit fatiguing. So what were we looking for when we did these? Well, the first thing we always did is we always took the viewer flying. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But the reason we took the person flying wasn't because it was a pilot show. It wasn't our goal to make a show that was geared specifically to pilots. No offense to all of you watching. There's not many of you out there. You don't buy enough Tide laundry detergent to matter. But when you go to an air show and you look around, you see thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people standing in an air show. And if an FBO could get those people to learn how to fly, there'd be a lot bigger FBOs, and we'd all be have a lot better flight instructing jobs. But that's not it. It's a small percentage. So we set out to be what we called an air show every week. And I'll show you a little video on that in just a second. But we want to be legitimate to pilots, but not a pilot show. We also want to have a mix. So we wanted to mix general aviation, warbirds, air show acts, and sport aviation. We wanted all of those. And the reason we did that was, one was self-protection. That was for content volume. And the second is we didn't want to get caught into a niche. And that means if we became EAA only or experimental aircraft only, we would get ourselves in a rut and run ourselves out of content. One of the other things we found right off the bat was that when I spoke to pilots, pilots talk to pilots, and we tend to talk in acronyms. And this is Deej in the foreground here interviewing one of the Cessna pilots for the Skycatcher. And when I talked to the guy, he would say, well, I was shooting a VOR and I transitioned to an ILS, and then, you know, I was giving this guy a BFR, and Deej would turn to look at me and he said, do you speak in anything but acronyms? And I said, no, we actually do speak actual whole words, Mark. And he said, well, I'd like to hear a sentence without one. So what we found was Mark would interview the experts, the subject matter experts, whoever it was, whether it was the glider pilot that was going to take us flying, the warbird owner, whoever it was, Mark would interview them. And what happened is that Mark was able to draw them out to kind of an everyman's approach. And Mark would shoot, and this is, you can see the camera obviously, and you can see Mark standing to the side, and the person would just talk with Mark, and Mark is real good at getting them speaking. Well, while Mark was doing that, this is Mike Francis. He was in on the production and helped us out a lot, did a lot of video stuff and worked with us. He was a partner in the show. And we would go out, and Mike and I, or sometimes if it was just me, we would go out and we'd camera up the airplane. So here you can see Mike putting them out on a Sea Fury Sawbones, an air racer. We're doing a piece on this. And what we would do is we'd camera up, and while Mark was interviewing, and no offense to the person who gave us the airplane, but time was kind of at a premium for most of those people. So we would try to be interview and go. Here you can actually see the owner and somebody else up adding oil because they like to do it. Then you get to air, and this is where Mark looks very serious here. This one kind of cracks me up because Mark looks so serious. To do air-to-air or not do air-to-air, air-to-air, as many pilots know, is the most dangerous thing you can do if one of you doesn't know what he's doing. or she doesn't know what she's doing. And in a lot of our cases, a lot of the subject aircraft or the subject pilot or the subject matter, we wanted to get air to air with them, but they had never flown formation or they had never done air to air before. So what I generally found was I would generally go up and they would just fly. You just fly a heading, you fly 360, and we'll fly off of you. And we actually did this with a lot of warbird guys too, because a lot of warbird guys would try to get a little too tight, or the camera wouldn't work. We set our lens at the right focal length, and then I would fly off of that. This particular case, this briefing is the helicopter pilot's on the left. He's kind of interested in what I'm talking about, and the helicopter owner's on the right here in the striped shirt, and he's very nervous we're going to wreck his helicopter. Mark, of course, is wondering why we're taking so long to get flying, but whether we did air to air or not. And this is a pretty good example of air to air. This is just a shot from the ground. That's the silver T6 in the background. That's my T6 that I own part of, Red Nose. It had the reversible gunnery seat in it. Mark would crawl on that thing, and we'd flip them backwards and shoot out the open canopy, and it worked really very well. That's actually me flying. That's a Japanese Zero replica I imported for my other business, and this actually is the first flight for this aircraft. And when I imported it, we actually made it a piece. We did a whole thing on it. If you'd like to find it, there's an intro on YouTube out there somewhere. But this is an example of us going out and doing air to air. So other things we did is we would go flying. And yes, this is SFD, straight frickin' down, with Chuck Aaron in a helicopter. Yes, I went and did aerobatics in a helicopter. No, there is not an IQ test to be the co-host of Flightline Television, apparently. But this is what we did in every show, and I mentioned it earlier. We went flying. So whenever we could, we'd go. And you can see in my right hand, I've got a little in-flight cam, not a GoPro. This actually worked really well as a handheld cam, and I'll show you some video later on, and you can kind of see some elements from it. But this is what we did. The other thing we did here, and I'll talk about this right now because I think it's important, is the audio. So you can see Chuck's got his helmet on, his Red Bull complimentary helicopter helmet. And of course, I have a world professional, renowned David Clark headset on. But we would capture audio in as many ways as we could. So we had a GoPro on the left side of this, just on the screen. I think you'll see it later on. We had a GoPro that pick up fair to partly cloudy audio, just ambient noise. In this case, lots of rotor noise and different things like that. But what we found is we would just use a very simple data recorder, and I'd stick it in my pocket or tape it to my back, put it up through my back, and I just put the earbud, the mic receiver, in my headset. So if you're out trying to capture audio and you're trying to plug into headsets and you're looking at impedance and you're doing all those things, we went through the hows and the whys, and honestly, the best audio we ever captured for in the cockpit was generally in the ear, and we did not plug into the system. So just a little insight there. But almost every piece we went flying. Sometimes, though, it wasn't wise to go flying, and this is an autogyro. Yes, this flies. Yes, this guy flew it in from Wisconsin. We did a piece on an autogyro flying. No, Paul did not go flying that day. I do have my limits. Not that these people aren't safe. It's just that, yes, I like to hide behind the truck when they went flying. But we did a wonderful piece. These people were the spirit of aviation, but I didn't feel the spirit enough to go flying that day. But basically what would happen is you take all of that. So you had the stand-up interview, you had us cameraing up the airplane, taking some stills, you had the GoPro footage from the flight, you had the in-cockpit camera, you had all that stuff, and we'd put it together, and Mark would shoot his stuff, and I'd sit around and stick my tongue out and be a wise guy. But basically, if you can imagine, we'd leave a site and we'd have a laundry basket full of 8, 10 different cameras, 6, 8 different audio sources, and we'd leave a site, and we'd have that, and that would all go into a file, and Mark would head back to the production studio with that. So what we do from there, and this is Mark flying in a 180 with the door off, trying to point to the pilot to where the airplanes are. What we would do is we would come back, and then Deej would do a very loose kind of take everything and put it together. We never really set out going to a site with a script in hand and saying, this is what we're going to shoot. We always let the site kind of dictate where it took us. We had a general idea, but we were very malleable when we got to the site. Sometimes it would the guy would be an absolute character, and we focused more on the character. Sometimes the airplane was very hard to fly, and the GoPro footage didn't turn out very well, and we'd use more ground stuff. We had to be kind of affable. But what we would do is Mark would come back over, and we'd kind of talk about it, and then we'd write a script. And again, we'd write a script that was pretty much based on what we learned and what we found interesting. So in this case, you can see the guy's shirt there. This is a Grumman Albatross shoot we did. And we came back from this one, and we talked a lot about the fact of how big flying boats fly and how they work and that kind of thing, and what we found interesting. Then Deej would take all the voiceovers, all the materials, and he'd mold them into a feature. So when we got done with that, we would look at the time balance, and this is the exciting world of television here. And this is an airline pilot on his day off looking, it's actually the same shirt, isn't it? Trying to look smart. And we would fill in, and we would have to fill into the second to get that 22-minute. And that's what we're doing here is we're doing a stand-up. I think this was a solo stand-up where we needed 8-10 seconds or something like that to fill in. And I would stand in front of a float plane and do my bit. So how do you do video right? And how do you go shoot the feature, but what are the axioms that Deej used then when he got back, and what did he do to make our video different than other people's? I'm going to show you something here, so bear with me a second. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to show you something here. And this is how Deej did this video, and I want you to take a look at all the elements I talked about on all the different cameras, and I'll talk about it in just a second here. So let me stop sharing. And let me reshare. And let me find Vimeo here. Hang on one second. Let's see, where is Vimeo? Hang on one second.
Hey, folks, by the way, while Paul is monkeying around there, feel free to use the chats to ask questions if you like. You can also ask questions on YouTube. I might be able to see those. And we'll have some Q&A time towards the end, but just if anything comes up you're interested in asking about, we'll use that feature.
Okay, let me do this. And I'm going to share this video here. Apologize for the clunky, and I'm getting attacked by a beagle. Brody, please get down. Okay. All right, here we go.
The world of general aviation flying changed when the FAA initiated the light sport category of aircraft. Let's meet one of the bright stars of this exciting area, Cub Crafters. Cub Crafters started back in 1980 when founder Jim Richmond started selling modifications to improve the performance of the venerable Piper Super Cub. After 2 decades of developing modifications and refinements, Cub Crafters was modifying aircraft so extensively they decided they might as well build and certify their own aircraft. Today, they do just that, just as well as providing modification and rebuilds of Cubs, and if you choose, they will sell you a kit so you can even build your own.
It's a very exciting airplane for somebody that's been flying their whole life. They get in that airplane and they're not disappointed at all.
Well, there you have it. So let me go back and share my presentation again. Am I back?
We are back.
Okay, good. All right, good. So talk a little bit about that on Deej's secret sauce. So that video was 1 minute. That's what we call a tease, and those are what we put up for promotion. So you saw kind of a little bit more music and a little bit more in there. But just in that one video right there, we had the runway. We had different camera locations. So we had a runway camera, we had an internal GoPro with a demo pilot. We're on site at the air show booth. We use stills, and we use steel from their company, which were stills from their video site with their permission. We did some video on the ramp before takeoff, and then we did an internal GoPro of me being very excited to fly. The audio levels of that were music, airplane noise. Again, how did we get that? Different ways. Mostly, sometimes we used CAN, but most of the time we didn't. Narration, an interview with the subject matter expert, which was shot in a similar manner to the video that you saw with Mark in the foreground there, just an interview. But then we steal the interview. We don't use a lot of that video. We use more of the audio. And then the intercom from flying is a little bit in there. So that's Deej's secret sauce. He always color balanced his videos. He always made sure the audio was perfect. He used silence, which I think is important. No speaking, sometimes just the noise of the airplane, sometimes just music with the video being the star. Always clean, always right on target. And in the end, you end up with something that is both visually pleasing and audio pleasing. So I'm going to jump off here again, and I'm going to play another little 1 minute short. And this is another video here. You still got me, Steve? I'm not hearing anyone, but okay.
Yep, you're doing good.
All right. Nobody likes watching someone click videos. All right. So let's go. Let's go here, and we will play. Oh, for goodness sakes. Hang on 1 second. No, that's not it. Man, I apologize. This went so smooth in practice, Steve, didn't it?
It did. It did go very smooth. But you hadn't had the worst day you've ever played in golf either before that.
Yeah, I went out and shot. Yeah, I didn't do very well today at all. Yeah, I pretty much put the uck and suck today. Hang on 1 second. There it is. Okay. So let's go here, and we will back. Stop.
Give it just a second to catch up, Paul.
Yeah, let me. Okay, sorry. Everybody loves it when the airline pilot can't go direct where? All right. Give me 1 second.
1 second.
1 second's up. All right.
It's all good.
All right. So on the Cub Crafters one, you saw all those elements, and this is another one that I really enjoyed. This is Just Aircraft. So we went out and saw Just Aircraft out at EAA, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about Oshkosh. So Oshkosh obviously is a great place to shoot video. So is Sun and Fun in different places when you're shooting air show stuff. But one of the areas that I kind of turned my nose up being a warbird guy and being a guy that flew Super Cubs and float planes, spent a lot of time float planes, I had never really been to the ultralight area. I'd walk by and hope that no one would crash on top of me or something would fall off their aircraft and hit me. But I hadn't spent any time there. And what the Flightline did is I got down there, and it made me open up my eyes. And man, I will tell you, I say it here in this video, and I wrote the script for this. It's the truth. These guys are really the spirit and the innovators. They're the guys with the low budgets but the big dreams. And man, were they fun. They were really fun to be around and fun to shoot. So here's one we shot on Just Aircraft. And it's interesting Just Aircraft chose to be in the ultralight area because really I guess it is kind of an ultralight, but really it's kind of a Super Cub. But I really enjoyed this video shooting it, and I'll pull it up right now and play it. Again, this is just a promo. This is a 1 minute little play here. Steve, is everything coming good on the video?
It's doing okay. It'll be better on the YouTube. Like now, it's cleared up a little bit.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
of the best things about AirVenture is not only the large amount of aircraft that are assembled in one place, but those that are designed and built by some of the true innovators in the industry that reflect the proud tradition and can-do spirit found throughout aviation's history. A great place to find the creations of these visionaries is in the ultralight area. There was a lot of talk about a hot rod from Just Aircraft that we wanted to check out, and it's called the Superstore.
That fun or what? That is wonderful. That's better than a Super Cub there, baby. I think so.
The Superstore, with its high-lift wing and long strut landing gear, is an ultimate light bush plane. By adding Fowler flaps and leading-edge slats, the Superstore gives exceptional short takeoff and landing performance.
All right. So that was, again, kind of a first effort at Oshkosh, and that was literally shot while we were in production. And it was just a hoot to get out and fly. And I hope you actually, no one's insulted when I said it's better than a Super Cub, because actually it was better than Super Cub. But it was a hoot to fly. It really was fun to get out and meet someone. That guy that I was flying with had designed that aircraft. He had built that aircraft, and he was selling an aircraft. And it's really refreshing to get out and meet people like that and be around them. It was a lot different than I expected, and I can tell you that. So go back and talk now. So we finished up season 1. So oops, I'm going to go ahead and skip that. And we finished season 1 to really strong reviews. Oops, let me get rid of that. And that was 2009. And in 2010, and we kind of were talking about doing some repeats. We did some different things, and we got approached by Fox Sports North. And Fox Sports North came to us. They'd seen us on 45, and they offered us a regional gig. And the regional gig was very interesting to us. They offered us 13 weeks and 13 repeats. We'd been on 13 weeks, but we didn't get the repeats. We had signed a title sponsor for the original run, and we only had 2 ads that we got. So we got a little bit of money, we got a little bit of time. Mostly it was kind of an investment. We're kind of learning as we went. Not all the pieces were great, but some of them were good, and some of them were really good, and some of them were okay. But when Fox Sports North came to us, we kind of wanted to become a real television show and really break out of the local mold. And so we went to the regional mold. 4 million households. Primetime 9 a.m. slot on Saturday mornings. We really liked the slot. It was what was an outdoor slot. We thought that was a really good fit for us. We were right next to some fishing shows and some outdoor shows. But there was one caveat: it was pay to play. So what pay to play is in the cable world, in the television world, you basically write a check, and you write a check for the show when you get your 30 minutes, and they retained about a minute, and we got to go out and sell ads and try to break even. That was quite different than being on for free and then selling a couple ads and making a little bit of money. So we quickly went from a TV production company into a TV production and sales company. And that was a bit of a change for us. So we had a start date of July 5th, and we had, like I said, a little bit of time off. So we decided that we were going to up our story inventory. So Mark and I headed down to Sun and Fun that year. We looked at that May-June timeline. We looked at some different pieces, and we started going at Sun and Fun, and we were warming up. And when we got on to Sun and Fun and we'd start shooting, I'm talking 6 or 8 features at a time. So in a 4 or 5 day period, we shot bullet planes. This is Whip Air's, Bob Whipplinger's Caravan and Amphibs. That is Kinky Lucy there up front. That's a Turbo Beaver that they flew. We had 2 of them out, put them on a local lake. We rented a helicopter. Mark hung out the helicopter door. I flew in Kinky Lucy, and we did some really, really good stuff. But what you'll notice is we try to stay with our theme, which is we just, we didn't want to make it a drama show. We didn't want to make it a hero show. We want to make it an aviation show that people wanted to watch. And again, after that first run, we thought we were doing well. We went and found old airplanes. It's one of my friends, Clay Adams here flying. Went to the American Barnstormers tour. We actually went barnstorming with Clay one weekend. That was a riot. And he basically goes out, takes his Travel-Air, throws out a shingle, and just like the old boys, he just waits for people to show up and he hops rides all day. And we did a piece on that, and that was a hoot. We hung around old airplanes. We hung around new airplanes. This is Bubba Peterson here, one of my friends, and this is a PC-12NG. It's a brand new aircraft, and he was one of the top salesmen in the country, and we were able to spend some time with him. We took this airplane up on a demo, and we did some things. That's the Grumman Albatross on the water, and we took, in this shoot here, I don't have a video or a shot of it, but we actually had 3 albatrosses out that day. Mark was up in a 180. I was in a Fountain Power boat on a large lake, and we were able to go out and get some amazing shots. And this is a still of one of them, just a beautiful shot there. Brian Moore flying right there, beautiful stuff. I went to Oshkosh that year, which we already were on the air, but we didn't have quite the pressure that we had the season before. This is actually the civilian-owned Harrier, $5,000 an hour in gas, and you can have one too. I didn't get to fly that one. That was one of those, not because I was afraid of as I was with the flying lawn chair, but that one I didn't get to fly, so it worked out. We also went out. We went to New Holstein. This is Cameron up, Dr. Korfman's airplane. And you can see putting on a GoPro there, and I don't know whose beater that is in the background there. That's somebody we know. Is that Steve? Is that you? Yeah, that's Cub Crafter, and yeah, that's yours in the back. But we went out and did a piece there, and put that together. And we also did some stuff with some Warbirds. This is me flying, doing the T-28 checkout over the weekend before Oshkosh, over in Wisconsin, near Oshkosh. And we went out. We actually had 20 some airplanes up that day doing high density formation flying, and that turned out to be a really neat piece. But Mark at Oshkosh has had enough. That's Mark pooped out, and he's Oshkoshed out right there. And if you walk around and you're shooting, if you're there 6 or 8 days like we were, we didn't have a booth that year, but we were just out shooting, and we ended up hit. But what did we end up with? This is how many features we ended up with. And I know that's a really busy slide, but that's what we ended up with. And it's alphabetical, but I'm not going to read them all to you. But you get an idea of what we ended up with. This is actually after the 3rd season, not after the 2nd season. But we ended up going out, and you can imagine it's about a half a day to almost a full day sometimes. Some of these involve a lot of travel. Some of these involve a little bit of travel at the local airport. Some of these were amazing, and the people gave us a lot of video to work with, and some of them weren't real amazing, and we just kind of had to cuddle together what we had, and for instance, a hot air balloon trip or something like that. So we ended season 2, Fox Sports North, 13 plus 13, 13 and 13. And we did the accounting at the end, and I was kind of the business guy. Mark wasn't the business guy, and as most things in aviation are wont to do, this thing wasn't a real big moneymaker. We were actually in the hole a little bit. So they asked us back for another season. They loved the product, and they really liked our check when we sent it to them. But we decided not to re-up on a regional station like Fox Sports. We also got a lot of contact because we would upload to a satellite every week. And when we uploaded to a satellite, a lot of other Fox Sports regionals would see it. So we did get a few calls. We actually did make a couple deals, and we put it on a couple different Fox networks, but none of it enough to matter. Nobody ever wrote us a big enough check to matter. What we were looking for was kind of the whale. It's kind of the big fish, kind of somebody to come on and be a title sponsor for us. So we beat the booths up at Oshkosh in that next season. And what we did is we actually came back and we got a title sponsor. And the answer was, if you can find a title sponsor and get on a national show, we'll sponsor you, and here's the number. So we went out and we went to Velocity. And Velocity turned out to be a really good fit for us. Velocity, this is a Discovery Channel. And if you're familiar, it's the old Wings channel. When they had 100% aviation content, unfortunately, there's only about 20% that they could fill up. But they went to Velocity, which was kind of a motorsport. It's kind of an outdoorsy. We thought it was a real good fit. We were able to do pay for play. It was actually, if you can believe it, less than the regional contract. We retained the ads and we signed a title sponsor. And so we went out, and our goal, getting ready for Velocity with a January 1st start, was to take that whole summer, which we've been shooting in production, not being on the air that next summer, after being on the summer before. We felt like we had a lot of content in the can that we could reuse, as I said before, but we wanted some big hitting kind of national things. And we were able to do that. I'll go back a slide here, and I'll tell you about this. So at the end of season 2 at Oshkosh, or actually in season 2 in Oshkosh, we were starting to get a name. And one of the things that was fun about getting a name in aviation is people started seeking you out. So the Commemorative Air Force, we had done some stuff with locally. The National Commemorative Air Force came to us, and they said, Fifi's coming into Oshkosh, and we'd like you guys to cover it. So I'm going to, again, clunky, go back here and give you another 1 minute here. But this just showed how we were evolving from, kind of going out and shaking hands with a guy at Oshkosh and doing a piece on his aircraft, or in Cub Crafters talking to a manufacturer at Sun and Fun. This was actually a national organization really kind of looking to use us to kind of get out to the national audience. And I'll play the piece from Fifi here, and I think you'll enjoy it. It's a 1 minute short. And again, I'll clunkily go through here and share that with you. What we really liked when we worked with them was the fact of the matter was they hang on 1 second. Movies and TV. No, that's not it. Why does it? 1 second. It always disappears. How come it never disappears?
I knew I should have told jokes.
I know you never should have told jokes about how good I was at this on the practice. Good Lord. Anyways, let me do this. And that'll get me to here. And I will go down here. And I will go here. Sorry. Steve got a really good show when we did it together. It was really seamless.
It was excellent.
Yes, I need Deej. All right. All right. So here's Fifi, and I'll play Fifi for you.
Okay, so right now we see a shared screen of the Flightline.
Hang on 1 second. Hang on. Let me share my screen. Why is it paused? Hang on 1 second.
I think there you go.
Let me do this. There, you got it. See it?
Yes.
Sorry. My wife taught dance for almost 2 months on Zoom, and apparently I should have paid better attention to what she was doing because she's much better at Zoom than I am. All right, so here's Fifi. So let me set the table for you here. So again, CAF came to us. We went down to Fond du Lac, drove down to Fond du Lac, which is just south of Oshkosh. We briefed up, and it was there were 4 P-51s, all CAF P-51s from different spots. I think actually one of them was privately owned, but whatever, doesn't matter. We briefed up, and basically what we had to do is we were going to fly down launch in a single ships, join up, do a 4-ship, and once the 4-ship joined up, we were going to look for Fifi. The beautiful thing about this is in the video, it looks very blue, but Fifi is a large silver airplane against a very silver background. We couldn't find Fifi. So there are 4 P-51s, and if you've ever flown formation, you're not supposed to look forward, right? You're supposed to have 1 guy looking forward and 3 guys flying off of 1. Well, 1 was an older guy, and I don't think he had great vision because we couldn't find Fifi. So eventually, we found Fifi just north of Milwaukee, and we joined up, and I was in 4, and we joined up, and Al and I flew Red Tail, the CAF Razorback. And let me make the screen big, and let me play it for you, and you get the idea of what we did that day.
Vintage warbirds hold a special place in the heart of aviation enthusiasts. Their history and horsepower always attract a crowd wherever they go. They have that special combination of beauty and power to go along with the legendary tales of bravery by their young crews. They truly are pieces of living history. The Flightline was lucky to meet up with the world's last flying example of the B-29, named Fifi, at AirVenture. The Boeing B-29 Superfortress served as a heavy bomber operated by the United States in World War II. Later variants served as bombers in the Korean conflict, as well as early aerial refuelers and reconnaissance aircraft.
Okay, so again, that's taking a look at what we call a short, and the short is, if you don't let it bother you, it bothers me terribly to listen to it, because Deej would take the audio and just kind of start crowding it together in there and splicing it together a little bit tighter than we usually did. So the piece would actually be about 8 minutes long. That was what we called a short, and that would go out and run. Let me pull back up my presentation. You seeing that, Steve?
Yes, sir.
Come in, Rangoon. Oh God.
I'm seeing it, but you're not in full screen mode yet. But.
Yeah. I only have 19 screens open, so I can do that. There we go. Okay. So with Velocity, you could tell at the end of season 2, and I kind of jumped ahead a little bit there from season 2 to season 3. But with Velocity, we felt like we really had upper game. Like I said, we had stuff and we called in the can, we had it on the shelf, whatever term you want to use. Some of it we didn't think was national/international levels, and we had put out a lot of content. Several people online here probably have seen our DVDs. We put them out through some distributors. We did a lot of different things in the interim, but when we got to Discovery and Velocity, we were really looking to up our game. So we actually did sign a title sponsor, and that was in after Oshkosh and through the rest of the year. We signed it up. So starting in January 2013, we were going to be on the air nationally, 9 a.m. on a national cable channel. Woohoo! Boy, we were in the big time. We thought we were in the big time. So we wanted upper game, so we started heading around. So in the spring, we went down and took a trip and flew with the Snowbirds. This is me next to number 4, I think it is, 4 ship, and we rode along with the birds, and wonderful piece, way farther than we'd been in the last 2 years. Really neat. Again, ticket to ride kind of situation where we really kind of were able to start working with national air show acts and get some traction. Blue Angels, I'm sure everybody's wondering why we didn't ride with the United States flight teams. The Blues and the Thunderbirds, they didn't turn their nose up to us. We actually did a piece on the Blue Angels. We actually rode in the C-130. We actually shot it. We did a lot of stuff. But getting a ride with them and doing what we want to do was much more difficult than the Snowbirds. The Snowbirds were 100% cooperative. Here's me again doing aerobatics in a helicopter. Yes, that's an IQ test. And this was actually one we shot. I showed it earlier, but we shot from a national when we were heading to the national/international level. Red Bull, very interestingly, Red Bull does a lot of their own video promotion, a lot of their own internet promotion, a lot of their own event promotion. They're really good at it because they sell a lot of sugar water with caffeine in it around the world, enough to have 2 Formula One cars, or 4 Formula One cars race, and all kinds of different things. But they were actually very good to work with. Anytime we want to work with a Red Bull pilot like Chuck Aaron or anybody, it was pretty much up to Chuck and he was pretty much a freelancer or a independent contractor on who he flew with and how he promoted. And we had a lot of freedom to camera up and do that stuff. And I guess their theory was any publicity is good publicity. So we flew with them, and it worked out really well. So week one came, pretty excited. I was down in Florida for a wedding, and I sat and I watched my TV show, which was a few short years ago on Channel 45, watched by maybe the total number of cousins I had. And now we're on international, and we're on the Discovery Network with Velocity, on their Velocity channel. Unfortunately, something bad happened. Something very bad happened. And that is that our title sponsor, Sennheiser, before they sent us a check to help pay for 13 plus 13 episodes, decided to pull out of aviation. And they didn't announce they were pulling out of aviation, but they pulled our sponsorship. And so as we knew, selling 30-second ads was hard. Getting a title sponsor in the big fish was a little bit easier, and we had it with them. So we were actually in the black working with just the Sennheiser money, and anything else we got was pretty much gravy. So that was good. So we kind of panicked a little bit. We tried to start selling ads. Well, it should be easy to sell an ad on national television, right? Well, it is cable television, and we were trying to sell them. If you can believe it, we were getting $300 to $400 for a 30-second ad, and we were paying well into a couple thousand plus per week to be on the air. There were pay to play ads that are very geared towards pay to play people, and those were the ones that when you see somebody, well, I'll actually tell you what it was. It was erectile dysfunction, and they put a 800 number up, and if you had erectile dysfunction and you called and said, "I saw you on the Flightline," we got like a nickel or a quarter, and that was one of the ways that we tried to claw our way back in. But after about a month and a half on national television with international reach through Discovery and through their networks, we had to pull the plug, and so we did, and we stopped season 3 kind of early on, and that left us kind of in limbo. Where were we going to go next? What were we going to do with the show? Well, what had happened in television is, as you all know, we were moving towards cutting the cord. We weren't there yet, but we were moving towards it. Advertisers were leading the way. As Jimmy Buffett said, there's 120 channels with absolutely nothing on, was already very delusionary to ad revenues for us, as we found. We didn't see that coming in, but we saw it once we were there. We also saw that many of the players in television, like Discovery and History Channel and all those, were looking for cheap, easy productions. A lot of drama, a lot of easy shows to shoot, and those were the ones getting the dollars. Ours was an expensive show to shoot. It was an expensive show to produce, and it was very expensive. It took a lot of time, and it did that. So one of the places we started heading to was the new frontier, and here's 4 of the big ones that we went on right away. We put ourselves first on iTunes, and iTunes was kind of a natural. It was pay to play. You got to pay to get your content up there, but then the viewer had to actually buy your content. Wow, what a concept. That's kind of old fashioned, isn't it? But in the day, people would do it. And Steve mentioned we had somebody on from Australia. We, up until a couple of years ago, were still the #1 nonfiction show available on iTunes in terms of revenue. A lot of our Aussie friends liked the show and bought it and downloaded it and played it and kept it. The rest of them had that kind of video on demand, kind of odd. Google Play played with that. But the bottom right is Amazon, and Amazon and Netflix and Hulu kind of broke the code. What they transitioned to is free content with the service fee. So you join Amazon and you get paid. Well, what happened is it created a real change in the market from we built our show to kind of raise ads through revenue, and that was kind of our revenue stream. And Amazon was one of the ways to do that. So we moved to Amazon, we moved to iTunes, we moved to Vimeo, we moved to Google Play. Some of you are watching on YouTube. We actually are on there. We did some things, and all those were nickels and dimes, and they all started rolling in. But in reality, it didn't really make for a franchise or a business. It was a great hobby income, but unfortunately, it wasn't able to sustain enough of a living for us to do it full time. None of us had committed to full time, but we weren't there full time. So Deej and I headed down to Sun and Fun the last year, This is Mark down at Sun and Fun. And we went through that last summer, went to Sun and Fun. We shot a few more pieces. And unfortunately, well, I should tell you the story about this before I go to the unfortunately. Deej and I went to a lot of air shows together, and I'm going to talk a little bit about air shows and about people at air shows. Mark had never really been to an air show before he did the television show. And as you see here, we're actually with the performers. You can actually see a performer to the left there next to the white car. You can see I don't know exactly what that is, but that's at Oshkosh, somebody's car there with a fire extinguisher in the back that's converted. Deej didn't do real well the first few years in the show. And as we got more experience, and this is the last year we shot, Mark, I gave him a yellow vest. And I also told him, make sure you wear your media tag on the outside of your yellow vest. And Deej did it at his first air show, and I think it was at Fargo, North Dakota. And I said, how did it go? Did they kick you out of the show like they did last year? And he said, no, with the yellow vest, not only did they not kick me out, they brought me water. So this is Deej sporting his yellow vest at Oshkosh. And we did quite well at Oshkosh, as I said, and this is our last season there. We were promoting a lot of our online stuff at this point. This is Deej in the back of my T6, all buckled in and ready to go. And no, he never did throw up facing backwards, looking through a camera lens. And I looped him and I rolled him and I did all kinds of bad stuff to him as a friend would do to a guy stuck in the back seat. But unfortunately, in 2014, we lost Mark. Mark was, as you can do the math there, 49 years old. We had played soccer together growing up. Mark had some arthritis in his knees, and not real bad, but enough that he had to be on medication. And he reacted negatively to the medication, and he had some clotting. And so he took Coumadin, an anti-clotting medication. And with the Coumadin, and Mark was also a recovered alcoholic. And unfortunately, Mark fought that demon. And one weekend he lost to the demon, and relapse is part of recovery, as anyone on that path knows. But the cocktail of the medications and the unfortunate alcohol in his system caused him to basically avulse his intestines. And he had some bad bleeding in his intestines, and he ended up bleeding to death in a very, very short time at his house. So we lost Mark, and that was in 2014. And I don't want to say the show ended, but really with Mark, Mark was everything. You see him here behind the camera. You saw him in front of the camera. You heard me doing the narration. I just happened to pick all pieces where I narrated, so you didn't have a nasally airline pilot speaking all the time. Mark was a very eloquent speaker. He did all the writing. We literally did a national and international television show on Mark's Apple computer. And he shot it with good cameras, but he did most of his editing on an Apple computer. And you see the level and the levels of complexity that he did, and how good at it he was. From 14 until now, the show's been on Amazon. The show's been on iTunes. I mentioned that it's done okay. It's no longer on Amazon, unfortunately. The market is somewhat, I'll use the word corrupt, in my opinion. I had to pay a fee of almost $3,000 to get content up to Amazon through a distributor. The distributor took our money and many, many other people's money, declared bankruptcy, and then Amazon pulled our content down. So I'm not willing to really chunk out more money to get us back up on Amazon, but we're still on iTunes. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Vimeo on demand, and we're still out there in a few venues. There's some talk I might put it out again and put it out in a couple different places. But I thought with that, Steve, is it a good time to open it up for some questions, or what do you want to do from there? Other stuff.
Well, when are you going to show the outtake video?
Oh, wait a minute. You want to see that right now? Hang on 1 second. Let me stop that.
Well, since there's no questions right now, maybe it's a good time.
All right. All right. So one of the things that happens when you work with your a good friend of yours is, and let me get out of that. And let me get back to Zoom.
While you're doing that, don't mumble. I'll talk a minute. Folks,
Okay.
The other thing I was going to say is that, we're watching this on Zoom. Everybody's quality that they're seeing these videos in is coming across a little different. Go out and find this stuff on YouTube or these other places that he's talking about. These are incredibly well-produced films, all of them. The quality is outstanding. The audio, everything else is great. It's worth it if you like the idea behind these things to go and grab them and look at them.
Okay.
Ready? Yeah.
Yeah. Hang on one second. I'm not very.
You're supposed
smart.
to be working, not listening to me talk about it.
I was, but I am really, I'm amazed at how bad all of a sudden, what happens, it's really weird is it constantly disappears. My Internet Explorer just keeps disappearing. So anyhow, let me go back and pull this up. Okay, so about a week before Mark died, October 2014, I turned 50 years old. And this is 10.5 minutes. I'm not going to play 10.5 minutes. I'll play a little bit here, and it gives you an idea. Just to get a little bit of flavor of the show and a little bit of the relationship Mark and I had. You'll see what it's like working with an airline pilot on a television show. I had never in my life done anything. I was a hockey and soccer player, and I never did theater. I never did anything. Deej had a way of drawing me out and making me giggle and laugh and actually act fairly natural. But as you can see in this video, let me share this and pull this up. But Mark had a way of drawing me out, and also. As I said, we didn't have a script, but when we did have a script, I clearly wasn't very good at following it. So, pardon the horrible birthday music, but here we go.
3, 2, 1. You gonna do that again?
It's your birthday. It's your birthday. Happy birthday.
He also took a picture of me every time I got out of the stuff. He saved all.
Feeling good, Danny.
For now, my name's Mark DeJoy.
And I'm Paul Jackson. We'll see.
Oh! My wife likes my spank.
And it's called the Cessna Discover Flying Challenge, and it's up next on the Flightline.
You can stop, Mark.
Our first story, I don't even know where I'm going. Our first story is
The contest.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Our first story is the contest that had 9 young aviators in a contest.
Peeing contest.
And I'm Paul Jackson. First up, I helped bring an aircraft into this country, and we brought it back to life. What? They not only do great work there, you get an FBA.
Sure, and we'll see you next week, right here in the Flightline.
Yeah, one more time. Paul's kind of looking.
Oh.
I was kind of looking at
How can you screw it up without even having a line?
I looked at you, I looked at you, and I looked back at the camera, and I nodded. I thought it was clever.
Oh.
You can use it, but just do one more.
Okay. How about you go fuck yourself, Billy? That's it. He's got the earmuffs on. Do you think you can hear me?
The Flightline's cleared.
All right, that's enough of that. I'm embarrassed enough. And if you want to, I can keep going because that goes on for another 8.5 minutes of me saying the same thing over and over and repeating the same things over and over.
I like what you said yesterday, that it seemed like he saved every clip of every time you screwed up.
Yeah. So if you can imagine anybody who's worked on computers or done video or done anything like that, you kind of clip stuff and you chip it out. Well, he just kept taking it and dragging it and then putting it in a file, drag it, put it in a file, drag it, put it in a file. And then at every single shoot, I would catch him with the camera and I would be getting out of an airplane. And I'm like, why is he shooting me getting out of an airplane? And then when he'd send me a short or something to get ready for the week and we would look at what we're going to shoot for the week, each would always send me over me getting in and out of the airplane. And anyhow, he had a lot of fun. He picked on me quite a bit. And but we did have a lot of fun. And I think about him. Oh, I'll get all emotional in a minute. But I think about him every day. The worst part of my day is when I wake up, I look at my cell phone and I'm like, man, I should call Deej. And I still do it. I mean, it's been 5-6 years now. And man, I miss him. And he was such a good guy. And he was very important to my family. His relationship with my wife was special, with my kids was special. It was really, really a neat thing and really a good guy. But in the world's, he left a big hole in the world when he left. So I can answer questions. I know people probably have questions, and everybody wants to know questions about how to make video or how to shoot video and do all that. I'm good at it. I'm not great at it. I was around Mark. He was a subject matter expert, but I'm more than willing to
Actually,
answer the question.
The questions so far, you do have a couple questions so far on the chat. One is Wendy says, do you copyright the shows, or could someone just steal your content?
Yeah, we ran into that a little bit. Two things interesting about that. We did copyright our show. One of the interesting things about TV and everything is licensure. So any music you heard in our show was what was called in the public domain. One of the things we couldn't afford when we first started out, and we never actually wrote the check for, was a music license. So Deej would go out and literally get old music in the public domain and use it. And we had to be careful about that, because Mark was good at that because he was in the business, and we were able to work with that. The second part of it was we would shoot things, and all of a sudden they would appear somewhere else. And we used it sometimes as bait. We would get an air show act and we'd say, hey, we'll go ahead and shoot you. I did this for the Stearman Act. We'll help you get your promotional video done by giving you really good video. And we'll go out and fly together and do a piece, if you'll do a piece with us. So they'll go out and burn gas and throw smoke oil out and try and make me barf and do what they did. But it worked out really well for both parties. But yes, we did have our stuff copyrighted and trademarked.
So, and the next question somebody has is, where is your content currently available? I think you said
iTunes is probably the best spot, mainly because I get paid for it. But there is some residuals out there on YouTube, so you can pull up quite a bit on YouTube. If you have Vimeo, you can pull up Vimeo on demand, and you can find some stuff there. The number one place we were really available lately that just went away was Amazon, and that was kind of our main focus, and that went away when Distributr went away. So look for us on YouTube. There's a lot of the short clips there you can take a look at, a lot of the minute stuff. And if you get on Vimeo, there's some stuff. Still on iTunes, you can download season 1 and watch the full season. We call it season 1 online, but it had stuff from season 1, 2, and portion 3 on there, so you can see that.
And by the way, folks, I just clicked the magic button that you can unmute yourself if you have a question for Paul. And if not, that's fine too. But
okay.
So
I talked to you about this, Steve. I showed everyone 1-minute clips, and these are all the promo clips. And I said they're all kind of compressed, and a lot of the stuff was put together. To really get an idea about the show, I know a lot of people are time crunched, but I can show you a whole feature. It's about 7 minutes long, and I don't know if everybody wants to do that. I can wait till the end, till all the questions are done, and if people don't want to watch it, they can click off. But I can put that up, and it'll run for about 7 minutes, and we can kind of exit with that. But whatever you want to do, Steve.
I think that would be awesome. And since I have everybody muted, then if I say all in favor, say aye. I think that'd be great.
Aye. Okay. All right. Well, let me give me a second here to struggle again. And I think I've got it right up on iTunes here. So this would be the easy one, hopefully. All right. So what I'm going to show you is, I'm going to go ahead and show you, well, I'll leave it up to Steve and Laura. Well, Steve's the only one that's not muted. He muted Laura. She's actually gone to get more wine. What would you rather see? Would you rather see snowbirds, or would you rather see Red Bull helicopter?
Well, why don't we take a vote? Everybody, you know where the chat box is? Number 2. He says, I want to see the Red Bull helicopter myself.
Okay.
I think.
All right. Well,
hang on. Let me do this. Of those in video, all in favor of the Red Bull helicopter? And who wants to see the snowbirds? It's a Red Bull helicopter for sure.
Okay. Well, then let me give you a lead in. Randy Kaufman raised his hand. How polite. Aren't doctors always? They're so polite. We went down to Gary, Indiana. We mentioned that in the clip. But we went down to Gary, Indiana, Chicago Air Show. So like I said, we got real good access the 3rd season, and we went down there. So being an old aerobatic instructor, I used to teach and flew a little bit aerobatic, competitive aerobatics, and did my stuff. I got my aerobatic square colored. I showed up with my chute. And I usually did show up with a chute because I'm going to fly something. I flew with Mike Wiskus in his pits, and I did all these different things, and I'd wear my chute. So I had a really nice chute. So I show up with this parachute, and Chuck Aaron looks at me like I'm a fool, and he says, "What's the chute for?" And I said, "Well, aren't we going to do aerobatics?" And he goes, "Yeah, you got no shot of getting out of this helicopter with a parachute on without getting cut into about 100 pieces." So no, we are doing aerobatics without a parachute, and that is completely legal in this also. The other thing about it is we took off. We cameraed him up, and he's a consummate pro. His interview is spectacular. The other piece is like I said, Red Bull was highly cooperative. So a lot of this is what we call steel, and it came from Red Bull, which is great. We really liked it because their quality is so high, and it saves us flight time and gas and all kinds of things like that. But we still want to keep it our piece, and we did, as you'll see in this piece. But we went out and flew, and I can tell you, I'll just give you the reaction to flying with it. There's no positive G's. It's all, and no negative G's. It's all within a 1 to 3 G window and very little negative. And what it really is it's like a tilt-a-whirl with no G's. It was just the oddest feeling of anything. And the one that's the oddest is we would go into a hover, and you'd stop, and he did a pedal turn, and we spin around. Then he'd literally take the helicopter, and it'd be hovering, and then he'd just flip it on its back, and then you'd kind of split S and come right through. And until you actually go out to a diving board and turn your back, and then just kind of do a back summy off a diving board, which being a soccer player and fairly not coordinated, I never actually did that. But the feeling of that was just amazing. So without further ado, I'll show this. There's also one part in this, and the little inside little funny things that happen. So Chuck turned around. If you watch, we take off, and Deej filmed him taking off, but Deej was actually kind of positioned behind us when we took off, so that we would turn and go out to the air show box we were headed towards. And I'm in the helicopter, and the rotor wash, when he tipped it down, you could literally see moving across the grass, the shockwave heading towards Deej. And Deej was smart, but not really smart. So this shockwave is heading towards Deej, and basically everything around him started moving very quickly. And then everything he was wearing started exiting, hats, everything started exiting. And then the camera actually came off the tripod and flew over, and Mark just about got blown over. So as you see me flying over, you'll see me kind of give the traditional pilot smirk as we inflict damage on others. That's about it for the insight. But really enjoyed this. This was one of my favorite pieces. And I got to find it here. It's at the end. So bear with me 1 second as I find it. Snowbirds. Snowbirds flying. Look how tight we are. Isn't that cool? Wait a minute. I'll go back to that. Paul flying snowbirds. Am I sharing? You see that, Steve? Uh-oh.
What? No, I see a big black screen at the moment.
Hang on 1 second.
I thought you were doing the helicopter. You're doing snowbirds now?
No, I just got to go. I'm scrolling through snowbirds. Let me do iTunes again.
Aha.
See it? Okay, I just got to scroll ahead here. PCNG, PCNG, PCNG. Where's my clock? 17. PCNG, PCNG. Sorry, I just got to get to the right spot. Deej with hands. Deej shooting down his watch.
Okay, so that's all we have is a gray screen right now.
Really?
I think what's going to happen. We had some weather issues coming in, but we were able to make it happen.
We got audio, but no video.
Great time, and what a great airplane.
Got it?
Up next,
Nope.
Paul and I.
No video.
That's weird. Worked yesterday, didn't it?
Well, we didn't do this yesterday, actually. I thought you did it all on Vimeo yesterday.
No. Let me do this. So what do you see?
Now I see a black screen with a gray box at the top.
That's too bad. Huh. Okay.
Do you have it in your PowerPoint?
I don't think so. I played it for you yesterday. I actually played it. Huh.
Okay, Randy Corfman, you have your hand up. Do you have a question? I've unmuted you if you do.
Aren't pilots supposed to be smart with technology?
But you have to unmute yourself, Randy.
Okay. You got me now?
We have you.
Well, Paul has a great presentation, and what happened to the footage you took at New Holstein?
We still have that in the can. It's still sitting in the can, and that was unfortunately one of the pieces for season 3 as we were working through that first month that Deej had in edit. So we hadn't finished that one yet. So that was, if I go back to that screen, you could see there was a bunch in yellow. We had about 10 pieces that were in progress Mark was still working on. And as we were going more online, Deej was switching out and adding content and doing it that way. So so that worked out that way. But yeah, New Holstein was fun. We went over there, and I'll tell a little bit of a story about that. So we drove over there, and we set up, and it was the STOL day. So everybody's doing their touch and goes and their takeoffs and doing their stuff. So I don't know who it was, but it was a multicolored with the fins on it, Super Cub, and he came in and bounced. Yeah, and he bounced. And you ever watch an airplane when it bounces and you're a pilot and you got your arms crossed and you go, that's not a good bounce, because the next bounce is going to be even worse than the first bounce, and the third bounce is going to be worse than the first bounce, and boom, 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 boom. And the airplane got up kind of on its nose, and he did a really nice job of saving it, but he didn't have a lot of directional control. So I started kind of exiting the fight stage right, and we had a pickup truck parked there, and I went to hide behind the truck because I'm a confirmed chicken. And I noticed after I ran, as most people are wont to do, I looked back to see who was going to get run over by the airplane, and Deej was still out there filming. And the airplane wingtip went right by his head, and he kept shooting. And he said to me, he goes, well, why were you scared? He had that, it wasn't even close. And I said, you don't know enough to be scared. So that was actually rather humorous. So we did New Holstein, and that was really good. We went out and flew with Doc Korfman and Steve, and we did some air to air, and both of us, that was a rare piece where both Mark and I were flying. And that was really, really well done. So we really enjoyed that. So thanks for the question, the good memory. That's really good stuff.
Thanks, Paul. Hey, Paul, do you want to? Can people watch that video you're talking about? Is there a place they can go watch that? Is that one?
Yeah, it's on iTunes, and it's actually, I believe that's in the episode 1. And if you go on iTunes, episode 1 is free, so you don't have to pay for it. So you can go look at that. And episode 1 is, as you heard me scrolling through there, episode 1 was snowbirds. We actually did 3 because, again, when we went to online, we weren't time constrained. So an episode could be 26 minutes instead of 22, or it could be 26 minutes and 32 seconds, and nobody cared. So we were able online, and that it makes me sad Mark didn't ever get to do that, because we spent so much time we spent so much time timing the show. Hitting exactly 22:30 is really hard to do. So we had to have 10-second fills or 15-second fills, and we were constantly working on that. And if you took the pieces out and moved them around, you were always fighting that timing, because some of them were 4.5, some were 8.5, some were 6, some were this, and some were that. So, but with that one, when our shows online, we put 3 features in per show, and the stand-ups in between were very minuscule. And then that one there, you couldn't see it, but Mark, most of them were solo stand-ups. So we just did one of us just doing the stand-up. We do the intro, we do that, and we'd go. So, the biggest hassle with online was we had to do the closed captioning. We have to actually take our script and upload it, which was kind of a pain in the butt. The networks actually do it. They actually have someone sit and type, which was very nice.
YouTube does it automatically now. It's amazing.
Yeah, they do it automatically, and I don't know how they get away with it, but iTunes and Amazon, we had to give them a separate uplift of it. But does anybody want to talk about GoPros and where we've come with those and what?
No, somebody wants to know what kind of watch you've got on, though. They say it looks like a GMT Master. Is that a rental?
That is actually a 1982 black and gold Rolex Submariner. And this is what happens when you sell somebody Cessna 210 in my aircraft sales business. And I got him about 30 grand more than he thought he was going to get. And when we closed, he turned and threw me a green box. I had a 1982 Submariner in it. So apparently I made him a little extra money on that one. But 82 Submariner, black and gold, they're really hard to find. So I love that.
Very nice.
Yes.
I don't know if anybody else has any other questions. We don't.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, I just want to talk. Can I say a couple more things about cameras?
Absolutely.
And safety with them.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you this. We learned a lot on the show, and a couple things. If you're going to go out and you're going to do video, I encourage you to do it. First off, go out and get yourself good mounts. One of the guys I mentioned, he was flying the albatrosses out there. It's a company called Flightline. He actually worked with us early on and helped us mount GoPros and turned it into a company. And Flightline is out there. Those are what we used almost exclusively at the end was Flightline. Non-marring. He's actually working on STCs. He's got FAA approval. He's got a lot of good things. Why do I say that? There was, you might have seen a video in there. We went out and flew a turboprop home built, and I was out flying that, and I got bounced by a friend of mine in a P-51, and we got into a little fur ball, and we started doing a turning fight, and I came back and I cleaned every camera off the airplane. So, so suction mounts don't always work. So be careful with those. That was in the early days, and Mark was very mad. Somewhere in the fields of Wisconsin, there's some really good footage. But be very careful mounting cameras on airplanes. The feds, the FAA never really got on us, but I'm sure somebody out in the viewing audience or somebody that's listening has heard a story about them. But mostly I'm worried about people damaging aircraft or actuating flight controls. The second off is air-to-air, and that is the worst kind of air-to-air is non-briefed air-to-air, and that is where you just are flying along and you go, hey, Bill, fly next to me, and you come up and Bill comes up next to you and Bill gets right in tight on your wing and you didn't brief it, you don't know where you're going, and you're getting near your destination and Bill doesn't know hand signals or anything like that. Don't do air-to-air unless you brief it. Brief it. I always prefer to fly with formation guys, but if you're going to fly with someone, do that. The second thing about air-to-air is let the camera do the work. Every one of you is going to be carrying a really good camera with you. Let the lens do the work. You don't have to get so tight. You don't have to get very tight on someone. And the last thing is use the radio. And that sounds, I get yelled at by my formation guys that I fly with in the T6s and stuff like that, because we're all hand signals and push and move and and everything like that. 3 potato, 1 go, boom, we're gone. All those hand signals are really cool. But talk on the radio a little bit. If you're not comfortable and somebody's getting too close, just say the word, because it's real easy to screw up with cameras, because especially if you're shooting when you're flying, that can get really dangerous. The last one is, and I'll get off my high horse here in a minute, is there are, the Navy has lost more pilots over girlfriends and moms and dads than they have in combat. And that is trying to get that perfect shot, making that low pass. Flying in front of a camera should be safe and easy. And the easiest way I ever did it, and the most impressive way to do it, is what I call a banana pass. And that is if you have a flat surface like a runway, if I can get my coordination. So if this is the runway, what you do is you start at one end of the corner of the runway, and if the subject of the camera's in the middle, you just fly kind of a half circle. Start on one corner of the runway, enter it, start your turn, get your 45 going, get your 30-degree bank going. And you want to be almost on perfect wingtip, not necessarily a knife edge or anything crazy, but you want to make your pass going that way. Your camera guy will get you coming in, he'll get you going away, and he'll get it. Everybody's safe, everybody's easy. You don't have to fly over a camera. Don't fly at cameras. People who fly at cameras always try to get low, they hit stuff around them, and they get themselves in trouble. That includes airshow people. So that's the lessons we learned on air-to-air and camera work. The cameras out there right now are amazing. Really good color balance, a lot of good editing programs out there, and I'm sure a lot out there know more than I do about them. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you very much for your time. I hope everybody will go out and take some time to look up your videos, because once again, I mean, what we see on here, it comes through pretty good on YouTube, but what you download the stuff that's out there, the original stuff is really great, and appreciate your time, and hopefully someday you'll get organized and get that Super Cub footage out, because Randy was stressed out because he has to run the short field contest, and you're making him fly around with cameras on his airplane. So we
that was the first time I ever met Randy.
We had a good, and now you're the vice president of the Minnesota Pilots Association.
You're to be the vice president of the Minnesota Pilots Association. It's all
right.
All good. All right.
Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate your time, Paul. And thanks everybody for being here. We'll see you.